Tiffany raised her wine glass, looked across the table, and said it louder than necessary. "We'll have to start touring nursing homes soon, right? Or are you planning to haunt this place forever?" The table went still. For a second, even the wind seemed to pause under the oak tree. Jason gave a low chuckle, the kind he used to give when he was nervous, except this time he didn't look nervous, just amused. No one said anything. Not Danielle, not Sophie, not even little Ellie. I was sitting right there, handing out corn on the cob, pretending not to hear. I didn't flinch, didn't ask her to explain. I just looked down at my plate and kept chewing. Tiffany smirked. She had that kind of smile that always came with a glass of Chardonnay and an insult. Bright, crisp, meant to cut. She leaned back in her chair like she had won something. Jason didn't look at me. Not once. That hurt more than her words. The rest of the night passed like static. Paper plates, plastic forks, laughter I wasn't part of. The children went back to their screens. The grown-ups moved on like nothing had happened. When they left, they didn't offer to clean up. Jason gave me the same half hug he always gives now, the kind you forget as it's happening. But what they didn't know was that life had one last card for me to play, and when I played it, everything changed. Before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe, and please tell me and others, what's one life lesson everyone should hear before it's too late? They had shown up 40 minutes late, already talking over each other like they owned the house. Tiffany barely acknowledged me, dropped her purse on the table I had just set, and made a face about the potato salad. She always does that. Acts like I'm the help. I had spent 5 hours cooking. Ribs, corn, my coleslaw, 3 kinds of pie. The same way I've done every 4th of July since 1983. First with Harold, and after he passed on my own. I don't think Tiffany's ever asked how long it takes to prep a rack of ribs, or if I still get back pain from standing too long. Jason used to care about that kind of thing, but Jason isn't the same anymore. The children didn't say hello. Ellie dropped her iPad on the couch. Sophie rolled her eyes when I asked her to take her shoes off, and Miles started pulling napkins out of the holder just to shred them. I smiled through it. That's what mothers do. That's what grandmothers are expected to do. But inside, I was already somewhere else. When they finally left, I locked the front door, walked to the hall closet, and pulled out a fireproof box. I hadn't touched it in over a year. Inside, labeled and dated, was a folder titled Plan B. I placed it gently on the kitchen table, where Jason once did spelling tests, and ran my fingers over the edge. Then I picked up my phone, opened my messages, and typed 2 words to my lawyer. I'm ready. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was upset, but because I wasn't. My mind was clear, too clear, like a room that's been emptied out and swept for the last time. At 5 a.m., I made tea, sat by the kitchen window and watched the swing in the backyard sway gently, though there was no wind. I remembered Jason building it when Sophie turned 4. I remembered holding the ladder while he tightened the bolts. I wondered if he remembered it too, or if that memory had been replaced by Tiffany's ideas about minimalism and clean aesthetics. The folder I'd pulled from the fireproof box was already open on the kitchen table. I had printed checklists taped inside. Things to transfer, things to cancel, things to take with me. I had prepared this months ago in silence. I just hadn't known when I'd use it until now. I started from the top. Bank accounts. I moved the remaining savings into the trust under the name Elaine Barrett Holdings, my maiden name, chosen deliberately. Utilities. I scheduled all shutoffs for the week of the closing. Jason once offered to pay the water bill to help. Then Tiffany posted on Instagram about taking care of the older generation. They never knew I was still paying for Ellie's swim lessons behind the scenes. I emailed Mr. Harlan, my lawyer. Subject line: final transfer. Let's proceed. His reply came 10 minutes later. Understood. Closing scheduled for next Thursday. By noon, I called Patricia. She arrived with boxes and lemon bars. Said nothing. Just opened the hall closet and started packing. That's how I knew she understood everything without asking. We moved methodically. Photo albums, tax folders, wedding china, just 4 plates, Harold's cufflinks, the quilt my mother made me when I graduated. I set aside a small ceramic cat Jason made in 2nd grade. It was chipped, but I kept it anyway, not out of sentiment, out of precision. We were sealing the last bin when Camille arrived. She brought coffee and gardening gloves and helped wrap the fragile things. "You sure?" she asked once. I nodded. That was enough. Around 3 p.m., we heard voices outside. Jason on speakerphone, Tiffany laughing. Honestly, if she caught the flu and dropped, we could finally put in those skylights. I froze in the hallway. Camille paused mid-tape. Jason didn't laugh out loud, but he didn't stop her either. That was the moment, not because it was crueler than the others, but because it was honest. They weren't pretending anymore, and I no longer had to either. I walked to the bedroom, opened the safe, and took out the envelope marked Final Transfer. Inside, signed deed, trust documents, closing instructions. Everything in legal order. No copies sent to Jason, no warnings, no conversations. By evening, the living room echoed. No more shoes by the door, no more framed photos on the wall, no more waiting for people who only visited out of obligation and left their mess behind. That night, Jason texted me a picture of Ellie curled up with a stuffed animal. "She missed you today." I stared at it. I didn't reply, because if I had, even just to say, "Tell her I love her," it would have left the door open. And I had finally locked it. Camille pulled into the driveway just before 7. The sun hadn't cleared the rooftops yet, but the air was already warm. Her van was clean inside, lined with old fleece blankets and bins stacked neatly in the back. She stepped out, handed me coffee, and said, "We'll start with the bedroom." That was all. We moved without talking much. I carried what I could: the photo albums, the lockbox, the old cookie tin that held my mother's brooch, and the hospital bracelet from when Jason was born. Camille lifted the heavier bins. I watched her fold my wedding dress into a garment bag without a word. She didn't ask if I wanted to keep it. She just packed it with care. By 9, the bedroom was empty. Patricia showed up not long after with breakfast sandwiches and 2 rolls of packing tape. She walked straight into the kitchen and opened drawers like she'd lived here herself. She knew where everything was, because she'd been around long before Tiffany. We wrapped the dishes I actually used and ignored the things Tiffany had brought in. Upgrades, she called them. Glasses I never liked, utensils that bent too easily. I left them all. Let her wonder why. At noon, we took a short break. Ate on the floor by the back door, where Harold used to sit after mowing the lawn. The swing Jason built for Sophie still hung from the oak tree. I watched it move slightly in the breeze. I didn't feel sad. Just finished. We were loading the last of the hallway closet when it happened. Tiffany's voice, on speakerphone again, drifting through the open kitchen window. Honestly, if she caught the flu and dropped, we could finally put in those skylights. Then Jason said something low. Not laughter, not disagreement. Just silence. Camille looked at me. I didn't flinch. I was past that. That wasn't the first cruel thing Tiffany had said. It wasn't even the worst, but it was the clearest. They didn't think I mattered anymore, Not even enough to pretend. I walked to the bedroom, opened the safe, and took out the manila envelope. Final transfer, written in my own hand. Inside, every document Mr. Harlan had prepared. Deed, trust, closing instructions. I checked everything one last time. Nothing was missing. Nothing was theirs. That evening, the house was quiet in a way it hadn't been in years. Not lonely, just still. No music from Ellie's tablet. No clinking wine glass. No Tiffany rearranging things without asking. I stood in the doorway for a moment. Looked at the tile I had scrubbed myself every week. The corner where I once taught Jason to tie his shoes. The cabinet with the chipped knob Harold never got around to fixing. Then I walked into the kitchen, taped the envelope to the fridge, and added one line above it in black ink. This home has been sold. Please direct all inquiries to Mr. Harlan. Do not contact me. Camille didn't say much as we loaded the van. She just closed the last bin and handed me a travel mug. You okay? I nodded. I'm not scared. Just done. We drove away as the light softened over the lawn. I didn't look back. Not even once. They got back Sunday afternoon, exactly 48 hours after I left. Tiffany was first up the driveway, balancing iced coffee in one hand and shopping bags in the other, phone tucked between her ear and shoulder. Jason followed, carrying Ellie, who looked half asleep, and fumbling with the trunk. I wasn't there, of course, but Alan was. Alan, the neighbor with the rose bushes and the old German shepherd that barks at shadows. He saw everything. He told Patricia the whole story later, down to Tiffany's exact expression when her key didn't turn. She tried again, harder. Jiggled the handle like maybe the lock had rusted while they were away. Then she called for Jason, who tried his key too. Same result. Confusion turned to irritation. Then Sophie, who was behind them, pointed at the fridge through the window. There's something taped there, she said. Jason leaned in, squinting through the glass. Then he pulled the envelope from the door and started reading. Tiffany was still circling the porch, muttering about someone messing with the locks, when he finally said it out loud. This home has been sold. Do not contact me. Contact Mr. Harlan for all legal matters. She froze. What is that supposed to mean? She asked, voice rising. Is this a joke? Jason didn't answer. He just kept staring at the paper like it might rearrange itself if he blinked hard enough. Tiffany grabbed it from his hand and started flipping through the attached documents. Deed transfer, trust information. All properly notarized. All finalized. She got a lawyer? She snapped. That smug old woman got a lawyer? Jason sat down on the front steps like he suddenly couldn't stand. They tried the garage code. It didn't work. They called a locksmith. He arrived, took one look at the paperwork Camille had passed to Sandra, the new owner, and told them flatly, "You're not on the title. This property belongs to a trust. I can't let you in." That's when Tiffany called the police. She told the dispatcher she was being illegally locked out of her primary residence. 2 officers showed up, calm, professional, firm. Sandra met them at the door, documents in hand, transaction clean and legal. Officer Moreno turned to Jason and said, "Unless you can prove ownership or tenancy, you'll need to leave the premises." Jason tried. Said he'd lived there 6 years, paid for bunk beds, mowed the lawn, fixed the gutters. The officer listened, then shook his head. "That doesn't change the deed, sir." Tiffany started yelling about elder abuse. Sandra asked them, politely, to leave her porch. They were given 10 minutes to collect what was on the lawn. No more. They spent the next 2 nights in a 2-star motel off the freeway, next to a gas station and a shuttered diner. I didn't know that part until later. Patricia heard it from Camille, who got a screenshot of Tiffany's Instagram story. Ellie curled up on a motel bed with the caption, chaos but cute, and 3 crying emojis. They didn't know I saw it. They didn't know I had a burner account, just for watching from a distance. I wasn't angry. I wasn't laughing. I just saved the post and added it to a folder called Why I Left. That evening, I opened a bottle of wine Patricia brought over and toasted to the silence. Then I mailed a plain manila envelope to their motel. No return address. Inside, 1 page. "You'll be in a nursing home soon, right?" Their words, in black and white. No context, no explanation, just a mirror.
The motel room door clicked shut behind them, but the echo of the front porch hadn't left. Jason tried calling me twice that night. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "Mom, we're not okay. The kids don't understand. Please just talk to me." I listened once, then again, slower. He said, "The kids don't understand." But he never said he did. Not once did he say, "I'm sorry." Not for the joke, not for the years. Not for letting Tiffany speak for both of them while I stood in a kitchen I paid for, setting plates for people who never brought their own hands to the table. I deleted the message. Not out of spite. Just clarity. The next morning, I transferred all remaining mail to a new P.O. box. One more layer between me and them. I changed the password to my cloud storage, scrubbed the old Wi-Fi logins, erased any trace they might still use to feel close, because they didn't want closeness. They wanted access. And access was gone. Meanwhile, Tiffany had gone on full damage control, cryptic quotes on Instagram, passive-aggressive captions. Family isn't always blood. Being the villain in someone's delusion is still better than being abused. I watched it all from a distance, never reacted, never shared, never responded. Camille sent me screenshots now and then, just so I'd know what version of me was currently trending in Tiffany's curated world of victimhood. The comments were split. Some people praised her strength. Others questioned the story. One person asked, "But whose name was on the deed?" Tiffany never answered that one. Later that week, Jason emailed me a long message. The subject line read, "From your son who still loves you." I didn't open it. I forwarded it to a folder labelled emotional blackmail. Then I went for a walk. At the thrift store around the corner, I bought a used lamp shaped like a lighthouse. When the cashier smiled and said, "Starting fresh?" I replied, "Finally," and meant it. That same night, I found a birthday card from Sophie tucked inside one of my old storage bins. It was from when she was 6. Crayon letters, uneven hearts, a drawing of us baking cookies. I held it for a long time. I almost cried. Not because I missed her, but because I didn't recognize her anymore. Last Easter, she'd rolled her eyes when I asked her to put her plate in the sink. Tiffany had laughed and said, "Mom says you like to do that stuff anyway." And just like that, a child I once rocked to sleep learned how to see me as staff. So I put the card in a drawer, not to throw away, not to keep close, just somewhere between memory and fact. That weekend, Patricia helped me organise the last legal documents with Mr. Harlan. We finalised the trust's community clause. If any of the grandchildren wanted to inherit anything from me in the future, they'd have to earn it. 1,000 hours of verified community service. Tracked, audited, approved. Not because I needed them to suffer, but because I wanted to know they had become something better than what they were being raised to be. And Jason, he wouldn't get a cent, not a letter, not a plate. He had already spent everything he was ever going to get from me. All he had left was a key. And it no longer turned. It was a Thursday afternoon when the knock came. 3 sharp raps, measured, like someone rehearsing control. I looked through the peephole. Tiffany stood there, sunglasses too large for her face, holding Ellie on one hip like a borrowed prop. Jason was behind her, expression blank, the way he always looked when he didn't want to deal with anything. I didn't answer right away. I waited. Let them stand in the silence I used to live in. Then I opened the door just enough for them to see I hadn't moved, hadn't run, hadn't crumbled. Tiffany spoke first. "Elaine, we need to talk. This has gone too far. The kids are suffering." I said nothing. The hallway behind me was quiet, the air still. My home didn't vibrate with apology anymore. Jason shifted his weight. Can we just sit down and figure this out? I didn't move. Then Ellie looked up at me, her voice soft. Are we going back to Grammy's house now? That one hit harder than I wanted it to. But I didn't flinch. Instead, I stepped to the side table, opened the drawer, and pulled out a small flash drive, black, unmarked, worn at the edge. I handed it to Tiffany. She stared at it like it might explode. What is this? I kept my voice level. It's every voicemail, every group chat, every message where you laughed at me, talked about me like I was dead, or discussed renovations I hadn't agreed to. She opened her mouth, probably to deny it, but something in her face changed. Maybe she remembered one of those messages. Maybe she remembered all of them. Jason looked away. I continued. You didn't just forget I was a person. You taught my grandchildren to forget too. Tiffany's voice cracked. That's not fair. We were just joking. I held up one hand, calm, final. Jokes don't cost people their homes. You did that all on your own. Ellie started to shift in her arms. Jason reached over and took her gently. Please, Mum, he said, voice quieter. Don't shut the door like this. We're family. I looked him in the eye, really looked. You stopped being my family the day you laughed and said I should be in a nursing home. He didn't argue, just stood there, holding his daughter, realizing too late that something wasn't reversible. Tiffany turned away first. She muttered something I didn't bother to catch. Jason followed. Slowly, I closed the door behind them, not with anger, not with a slam, but with the certainty of someone who had finally redrawn the boundary line in permanent ink. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Jason's message. I hope you can live with what you've done. I read it, then deleted it, because for the first time in a very long time, I could. They checked into room 208 of the Riverbend Motel that same evening. I didn't need to guess. Tiffany posted a filtered photo of Ellie curled up on a scratchy floral bedspread with the caption, "Not ideal, but family sticks together." 3 crying emojis. 0 accountability. Camille sent me the screenshot. I saved it quietly into a folder on my desktop titled Narratives. I wasn't collecting proof anymore. I was collecting perspective. Jason tried again midweek. Another message, shorter this time. So that's it? I didn't open it. I marked it unread, dragged it into the same folder where I kept old voicemails and half-finished apologies. Then I blocked the number. Not out of bitterness, out of necessity. The next day I went for a walk downtown. I bought a rosemary plant and named her May. I liked the way she looked by the window, small but persistent, the kind of thing you have to water intentionally. Not out of obligation, but care. Tiffany, meanwhile, pivoted to pity. She posted a series of black and white Instagram stories titled When Family Betrays You. Whispered voice, dim lighting. Jason in the background. Quiet. Kids sprawled across mismatched bedding like props for a documentary no one asked to be in. It should have made me angry. It didn't. It just proved what I already knew. Some people can't stand losing access more than they hate losing love. Then the story spread. Someone on Reddit reposted her clips, added context, tracked public records, found the trust deed, matched timeline, location, last names. The thread was titled, Mother-in-law evicts freeloading family with legal precision. It blew up, thousands of comments, most applauding the mystery woman. Some calling it inspirational. Others asked for legal templates. A few called me heartless. But no one called me wrong. Tiffany stopped posting for 2 days. Then came the TikToks. Trauma hits different when it's your own blood. They say family first until it's your house they want back. I watched all of it through the burner account Camille had helped me set up. I never liked social media, but now it served a different purpose. Not for watching others, but for watching myself, through the story they told when they lost control. And then it started to backfire. Someone sent the Reddit post to Jason's employer. They didn't fire him, but they did place him on a leave of absence. Something about reputation management and employee conduct. Tiffany called it corporate bullying. She tried tagging lifestyle influencers. No one responded. Camille texted me that night. She's unraveling. I poured a glass of sparkling water, sat with May by the window, and exhaled. Not with triumph, not with relief, just with stillness, the kind you earn, the kind you defend, and the kind no one can post away. The email came from a Gmail address I didn't recognize, just one line. "Why doesn't Grandma want us anymore?" I knew immediately it was from Sophie, not just the wording, but the way she typed anymore as one long fused word. She used to do that on her spelling tests. I had helped her fix it in second grade. For a few seconds, I just stared at the screen. Not sad, not angry, just hollow. Then I stood up, walked to the kitchen, boiled water for tea. Somewhere between the whistle of the kettle and the click of the cup hitting ceramic, I knew I wouldn't reply. Not yet, maybe not ever, because it wasn't just a question. It was a message wrapped in nostalgia, asking me to reopen a door they spent years closing. If I answered Sophie, Tiffany would be behind her. Jason too. Always one step behind, ready to step in when guilt cracked the door just wide enough. I sat at the dining table, same one Jason once finger-painted on when he was 5. I pulled out my voice recorder and said one line, "You'll understand when you're older. And I still love you." Then I saved it to a flash drive, labelled it "for later." That night, I didn't sleep well. Not from regret, but from grief. Grief for the version of them I once believed in. Grief for the granddaughter who used to draw me rainbows in crayon, and who now scrolls silently through TikToks where her mother rebrands eviction as victimhood. By morning the ache had dulled. I opened my laptop, emailed Mr. Harlan with one last request. Add a condition to the will, 1,000 hours of verified community service before any inheritance is released to any grandchild. No exceptions, no early payouts. He replied, "Already anticipated. Drafting now." Later that day, I saw Jason's name trending again. Not from scandal, but from a stitched reaction video. Some internet stranger had broken down the timeline of Tiffany's posts, lined them up with real estate records, commented on the tone of her voice. They ended the clip with, "Honestly, this grandma didn't go no contact." She went executive level silent. I closed the app. Not proud, not ashamed, just affirmed. That afternoon, I bought myself a second-hand desk. It was scuffed at the edges and wobbled slightly when I wrote. I liked it that way. It reminded me that even something a little unsteady could still stand. And that night, I sat down, took out the final letter I'd written months earlier, the one I'd never printed, and added one more line at the bottom. "If you're reading this, I'm already gone. But I didn't disappear. I just finally put myself somewhere you couldn't reach unless you changed." Then I folded the page, slipped it into the safe, locked it, and let the silence return. The will was finalised on a Tuesday morning. Mr. Harlan sent over the documents with quiet precision. No commentary, no delay. I opened the file, read every word, then scrolled to the section that mattered most. Beneficiaries subject to verified community service clause. 1,000 hours minimum. No substitutions. No proxies. No inheritance without proof of contribution. I signed it without hesitation. Jason and Tiffany received nothing. Not a cent, not a keepsake, not even a closing sentence. Their names didn't appear beyond the revocation of rights. I added one final note in my own handwriting. Do not notify them of my passing. Let them find out with the rest of the world. The executor would be Natalie, my goddaughter. The only one who'd ever shown up with soup when I was sick, who once unclogged my drain without being asked, who never mentioned inheritance, only checked the heater before winter. I called her after I signed. "It's official," I said. She paused. "Are you okay?" "Yes," I told her. "I think I finally am." She came by that evening with Thai food and ginger beer. We sat on the balcony with paper containers and no small talk. Just the soft sound of traffic below and the rosemary plant, May, leaning slightly in the breeze. Inside, the safe was locked. The flash drive, labelled "for later," was tucked beside the updated will. A printout of Jason's last text. "So that's it. sat folded next to it. I hadn't replied. Never would. The next day, Camille helped me move a few final things into storage. We labelled everything clearly. No ambiguity. No invitation to misinterpret. Tiffany posted another quote online. Some women weaponize silence. I call it emotional abandonment. Camille sent it to me with a single-word caption. Projection. We didn't laugh. We didn't even respond. We just kept moving furniture. That night I opened a small wooden box I hadn't touched in years. Inside was a photo of Jason at 10, missing a front tooth, smiling like the world was still soft. Beneath it, a picture of Harold holding him on his shoulders. Both long gone in different ways. I didn't cry. I placed the photos back in the box, added a note on top. For history, not for forgiveness. Then I closed the lid and slid it beneath the bed. Because some stories aren't meant to be rewritten. Only remembered. By the right people. 8 months have passed since I handed Tiffany that flash drive. They haven't called, haven't written, no knock on the door, no holiday cards with crayon handprints, just silence. And I've kept it that way, not out of spite, but because silence, once earned, becomes a kind of shelter. Jason's number is blocked. His emails go straight to a folder I no longer check. Tiffany, to her credit, has stopped pretending online. The filtered photos of motel rooms have given way to vague, inspirational posts and rebranded hashtags about rising through adversity. I don't watch them anymore. I don't check the burner account. The narrative belongs to them now, but the ending belongs to me. Christmas came and went. I brought lemon bars to Camille's house and sat with Natalie on her porch while her dog fell asleep under my chair. When someone asked if I had children, I said, "Not anymore." No one pressed. I didn't explain. I didn't need to. I joined a pottery class on Thursdays. My hands still shake a little, but clay doesn't mind. I started walking more, joined a group of women who refuse to slow down just because their knees say otherwise. We talk about books, recipes, how none of us want another man in the house. Peace, it turns out, is a harder habit to break than loneliness. May, the rosemary plant, has grown taller than the window ledge now. I talk to her in the mornings, just once before the noise of the city begins. She listens better than most people ever did. Sometimes I wonder if Ellie remembers my kitchen. If Sophie ever talks about baking. If Miles still tears napkins just to feel something in his hands. I wonder, but I don't dwell, because I know. Any path back to them leads straight through Tiffany. And I already burned that bridge, salted the ground, and walked away barefoot. A few weeks ago, Natalie brought over a copy of the final executed will. Everything airtight. No loopholes. No contact. If I disappeared tomorrow, the instructions are clear. But I'm not disappearing. I'm just finally living in a space where I don't owe anyone an explanation for surviving. I did get one last message. Anonymous sender, one line. Are you really never coming back? I didn't open it at first. When I did, I realised it didn't matter who wrote it. Jason, Tiffany, even Sophie. The answer was already written in every silence I'd maintained. No, I'm not coming back. And if the question ever comes again, the answer will still be the same, I replied once. Please do not contact me again unless it's through legal counsel. Then I closed the laptop, watered May, and let the sun pour in through a window no one else has a key to.